Welcome to the Bianca Williams podcast. I'm your host, Bianca Williams. If this is your first time, welcome. Do not forget to subscribe, like, and share your feedback on the content we're going to be talking about today. As you guys know, we talk about self-growth tips, but we also have guests sharing their stories, sharing wisdom, all kinds of goodies. And so today you guys are in for a magical surprise because we have a wonderful guest. Her name is Miss Lakeisha Mosley. Thank you so much for joining us, Lakeisha. And just to tell y'all a little bit about her, she is most definitely a mental health influencer, advocate, creator. She is like some of everything. She's an entrepreneur. She really thrives in creating safe spaces for people who are navigating the mental health world. And Lakeisha, you have so much going on. Please share just a little bit about you and what's coming up for you.
Thank you so much, Bianca, for just the honor of being invited on your show. I really appreciate the invite. As you all heard, I'm Lakeisha Mosley. I am an event planner by trade. I actually have been in business for 12 years, but over the last 3 or 4, I've actually transitioned my business from mainly client events to now and hosting my own mental health and wellness events. I consider myself a mental health disruptor, an advocate for the cause, being that I live with a mental illness, which is high functioning depression. And so, what I decided to do was create this cool little safe space for women entrepreneurs called Mind Your Business. And it's actually coming along really, really great. I'm so excited on it. And it really is going to help women entrepreneurs who also live with a mental health challenge have a space, a nurturing safe space where they can actually focus on like healing and getting better. And so I have like tons of events that I'm always thinking of and curating that I have coming up. And so I'm just excited to be here today to talk to you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you guys, yes, she is absolutely right about there's always something coming up. I feel like I look up and I'm like, dang, she just did something, but she got something else coming up. So stay tuned. I actually need to just put it on my calendar. So I like know, okay, make sure you carve out time for this. But can you please just, grace us with sharing your journey to entrepreneurship and just what, starting your business was like?
I'll tell you, my story is really quite unique. I am not your typical entrepreneur. There was never a desire to become an entrepreneur. Never. I'm a Gen X. Most of us, entrepreneurship is really not something that's ingrained in us. Our parents was like, you go get that good government job and you stay on until you retire. And so I just had that mindset. My degrees are in criminal justice and HR. So those were the paths that I was going to go on. But at the time I was married, and my then husband and I were celebrating our 5th year wedding anniversary, and we decided to do like a big wedding celebration or whatever. And so we did that. I actually planned everything and I hired someone for a day of to just do the coordination. But I actually liked it. I found out that I am a natural connector. Like I just started making all these friendships, just nurturing these relationships with people. We went on our honeymoon, came back, and like 2 weeks later, my store was closing. At that time, I was a bookstore manager at one of the local colleges here, and they were actually shutting down that location. So I'm like, I don't really want to go back to work. What can I do? And the first thing that popped in my head was what I was doing. So I was like, okay, what can I do? I went back to the venue owner and told him, hey, this is what I want to do. Do you think you can help me? He mentored me. We are still friends to this day, but he mentored me. I booked like my first 3 wedding clients like the next week or so. The rest is history. I've transitioned from weddings because don't ask me to do nobody's wedding. I will not. I do not like brides. I do not like brides. I do not do weddings at all. I transitioned from that to more social like events. And then I started working more in the nonprofit sector, really events with a cause. And then that just kind of led to me transitioning more into virtual because when COVID came, we couldn't do nothing. Like we literally had to pivot our entire business models. And so for me, I pivoted over to virtual and my business blew up. Like it went bananas then. Went crazy. And from there, like I said, the rest is history. I do now a mix of in person and virtual, but it was never a path that I really, really chose to go on. But I thank God that I did go on it because it's given me a level of freedom that I probably would have never had working a traditional nine.
Wow. I love your story. And I absolutely feel like I can relate to that. Just not necessarily as a child saying, oh, one day I'm going to own my own business. But growing into that space and feeling like your calling becomes more and more clear, as you navigate life, you learn what you need to learn as you're, moving through education and just getting work experience. But there is a point where you cannot deny your calling anymore and you just land in where you're supposed to land in. And it sounds like it's been not only rewarding for you, but rewarding to so many other people because the kind of work you do is giving back constantly in different ways to people in need and other entrepreneurs. You're so funny. You said, I used to, create weddings, but that's not my ministry anymore. So
My
don't,
ministry.
that is so funny. You're also navigating this mental health journey too. And so, how has that intertwined into the business space for you?
Literally, Bianca had to create it my own self. There was no blueprint about how you navigate this whole mental health space.
Mm,
Either if you are an advocate, an ally, an influencer, or if you are someone with a lived experience, there's no blueprint of how you navigate this space. And so for me, it truly has been like trial and error, just trying to navigate what it was. I will tell you offhand, the first thing I noticed was there was no safe spaces. There were no spaces for Black women entrepreneurs, number one, let alone women. It was not commonplace to say that there was something wrong with you or you felt funny. Even when I got my diagnoses, I was like, oh, I'm just tired. I'm about to be 46. I'm just going through the like I was physically ill, feeling physically ill, but there was no evidence of any
right.
physicalities, any physical deficiencies, any of that stuff. And so from the diagnoses to where I am now has been a lot of growth because I've had to, it literally changes your entire life, not just your mind, because that's the main thing that we have, but how I navigate with clients, how I navigate with people that I work with. You have to now have these very courageous conversations about, well, this is what it looks like when I'm in crisis. Or this is what it looks like when, or sometimes you may have to tell me something more than once. You may have to send me an email instead. Even the conversations with my clients was different because it was like, hey, there may be some days that I just can't function. I promise to adhere to all deadlines that we've set. So now you have to give yourself more space to do, all of these things. When I look at the people that are in my network as I'm planning events, if you recall last year, I had to push events back like 2, 3 times. Like it never came to fruition because mentally, I just couldn't function. I literally couldn't function. I had deaths back to back to back to back to back. I was paralyzed. And when you're in this space, you really have to have people who advocate for you as well as you advocating for yourself. But it's just a different, you have to move a little differently and you really have to have more conversations so people don't think you're moving funny or shady.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things first of all, I really
So,
appreciate you sharing this. I think that feel like it could bring some clarity to a lot of people who may not be aware of how some mental illness work and how especially high functioning things like depression and anxiety or things like that work because the key word in that high functioning piece is that you're still working, you're still creating, you're still like navigating all of these areas in your life. And I think sometimes the misconception about depression is that you shut down and that you can't work. And yes, there's parts of that exist, but a lot of people are working with this and are very functional and are very successful. And so another thing you said that I thought stood out was one of your symptoms was you were having physical pain and things that look like there has to be something wrong. I must have broke something. I must have sprained something. And then there's no evidence of this. And that's really common to show up, especially in disorders like depression, and being able to create what is a break for you, what does, what is the appropriate response to your symptoms. I think it's also really, really key because I don't think, mental illness is one size fits all. I don't think, like how depression looks for this person is how it looks for that person. And that's okay. That's why it's kind of like a range of different symptoms. And usually diagnostically, we're looking at these range of symptoms and we're only picking, 3 or 4 based on what that person is presenting with. And so it doesn't look the same for everybody. So I appreciate you clarifying that through your journey. Have there, and you kind of touched on this, but how have some of the specific mental health challenges that you faced like affected or impacted your work?
Oh my gosh. It literally had me change the entire trajectory of my business. I went from working with clients to working with maybe one or two. And those are clients who I will say I handpicked. And not necessarily because they were allies to the disease or they were allies to me, but they were very nice to work with. They weren't triggering. And I think that's something that we don't understand as entrepreneurs. Like, no, it's not going to be easy breezy, but we get to pick who the hell we want to work with. And so I just decided I wanted to work with these two people, and that was it. And then I wanted to work more in my own space, bringing light to something that, like you just said, people don't really think about. So for those two clients, thank goodness their events are at opposite ends of the year, because sometimes I would be like, I don't know how I'm doing this. This is crazy for me. But we have, set points that we have to check in. One of them I'm really close to as a friend, and there are signs that she had to know, like, okay, if I text you and you don't respond in 2 days, then I'm calling. If you don't answer in 2 more days, I'm catching a flight. Like, my friends are like that. They will catch flights, they will get in their cars, they coming, because I've
Yes.
educated them on what I pretty much created a mental health crisis plan, and this is what it looks like. So with work, it's even more important as an entrepreneur, and if you work in a corporate or business setting, to share, especially with people you trust. This is what X, Y, and Z looks like. So I do work a part-time for a nonprofit that helps women-owned businesses get certified. And I have to share with my boss, like, you can't give me too many things at one time. It's crazy because she has ADHD. I have high functioning depression. They almost will not mix together. We could literally drive each other crazy. But we don't, because we've had conversations about what it looks like. For her, she got to get it out. If it come on her brain, she got to get it out. When I see the emails or the text messages coming in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I freeze up. So we have a system that there's a running document that she puts all these things on that as they come out of her head, because she's brilliant. She's amazingly brilliant. So they come out. However, it's up to me to take those things, and then I have to put them in a way that I can function with them, but also adhering to deadlines that she has set in place. So she may rattle off 4 or 5 different events that she has in mind or that we have on our books, and she gives me, a range of deadlines. Like, I need this done between, October 1st and October 5th, like there's a range. So we have a system of how we work together with each other. But if I hadn't had that conversation with her, she could have thought that I was lazy, or in those times where I'm like hyper on work, because with high functioning, we don't know when to stop. We literally do not know when to stop. There are times where she's had to say, okay, that's enough. Shut the laptop down. You need to go home. Like, you're doing way too much. It affects your work in good or bad ways, but because it's so inconsistent, you have to tell somebody. You got to tell somebody.
Yeah. It sounds like I know you mentioned earlier that some of this you've learned through trial and error, but I think it's so amazing that you have created systems for yourself that work. And some of the work I used to do, we used to talk about that. Like, instead of creating a instead of like letting the path be react to whatever the crisis is, you can be proactive and create your plan to the crisis, especially if you know this may be something that is recurring in some way. Like there's usually a thread in like how this is triggered or what maybe are some signs or warning signs that this is coming. And I mean that is so, like you said, so much, like that's magical. If you guys don't know, like there's almost everything in your life you can create a proactive plan for, not feel like, you're just blindsided, to help you kind of mitigate what's coming on. Because life is no life, right? We're not perfect. We're human, right? We have our own like things we're battling and navigating. And so just love that. I think that was like my biggest takeaway. And having somebody who, kind of balances you out in a sense. You like, we drive each other crazy, but like her strength actually like feeds my strength, right? And so um there's a balance there, and I just love that she can kind of come up with stuff, and you like, I know how to move this into place. Because what I hear is you're naturally ambitious, you're naturally highly productive. It's just sometimes the depression comes in there and it stops things or it pauses things. But the machine that you are and the creative just powerhouse that you are is just always going to come back out. And so just allow yourself space to continue your own healing journeys, your own recovery journeys as you navigate that. It's super. So how do you find the balance in the demands of running your business and taking care of your mental health?
It is actually absolutely my responsibility. It is absolutely my responsibility. And I think that's what's missing in this journey of mental health, is that it could be stigmas and things that people think that we want to be coddled and we want to be felt sorry for. No, I need to be held responsible for my behavior, how I react, how I act, like you just said, having things in place. If I know that having a conversation with you could be triggering, what do I do before that conversation and after that conversation? Because if I say I'm an advocate, I gotta talk about it.
I
I
love
gotta
that.
talk about it. So you have to have things in place. And I think the main thing that people miss with balance, however you see it, because there's a whole debate of whether it's true and all of that, is that there's responsibility and accountability for those things. I am a mom, I'm a grandma, I'm a sister, I'm all these things, a friend. I am, active in my church, as well as I'm active in the mental health community, building or rebuilding my brand to be mental health and wellness focused. I have responsibilities. Therefore, I have to be held accountable that there are certain times that I have to show up as mom. As grown as they are, Kenisi and Caitlin still needs me at some
Exactly.
point. So there are things in place that says this is what you have to do. I have two really great friends that I hang out with, as well as friends that are online a lot. I have to make space for them because they feed into me. They support me, and I want to do the same. I have demands at my job, but I have demands of the business. In order for me to say or have a title of saying I'm disrupting the stigmas of mental health, okay, what am I doing? Am I talking about it, or am I actually doing something? So, curating these events, being active in those communities where we have allies and supporters, I have to be very present. So I think with balance comes responsibility of knowing, no, I can't do them all at one time. That whole juggling, thing, it's false. I have to learn how to pick this up, and those things will lack, and I'm okay with them lacking at that time, as long as it's not in detriment. It's a matter of picking things up and putting things down when you.
Right. Right. I'm with you right there because I feel, yeah, I have so much to say, but I feel like, if you say like we're operating with 100% and you have 5 things you're committed to in that 100%, when you pull one of those things to the forefront, the other things are not getting, like, you can't give everything 100%. And so, like you said, when I'm bringing my attention to this thing, the other things may kind of take the back burner. They may just kind of, lack a little bit. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to dedicate time to that, but I have just an approach to my priorities that allow me to be very present in what I'm doing. and therefore I can bring a certain quality to it. I can be a lot more invested in it. And that's, I feel like you're
Like,
mindfully, right, connected to the activities. You're intentionally looking at that time. I love that because, like you said, there's a lot of hats you're wearing, and there's no way to have all those hats on at once. You're gonna have them hats stacked up to the ceiling,
they
trying to.
will be stacked up. And I feel like, Bianca, we also miss that we have the freedom to do what we want to do. We absolutely have the freedom to do what we want to do. It sometimes requires a conversation. I don't have to explain to my children when I'm going to hang out with my friends. I'm grown. I don't have to explain to my friends that I can't hang out with them today because I'm hanging out with my children. I'm grown. It does require sometimes a conversation. It does require me saying to people what it is and not have them assume. We do a lot of that. And then we get upset with people when people feel away, when it could have really just been a conversation. It just could have been, oh, you know what, Yolanda and Cindy, I can't hang out today, y'all. I'm hanging out with Kenisi and Kaylin. The grandkids are coming over and we just gonna do blah blah blah. Now, do they need all of that? No, my friends don't require all of that. But in the essence of friendship and transparency, I may say that work is 9 to 5, honey. At 5 o'clock, she know, peace. I'm out of there. However, if she needs me to stay late, there's a conversation she knows that has to occur in order for me to stay. It's about setting boundaries for your priorities. I love that you said the word priorities because I think that we want to label certain things as a priority and certain things are not. No, if I got 5 things that I have to handle, they're all priorities, but at different times. All
Absolutely.
at different times.
Yep. Yep. Then that's the key. It's not even saying like that. These other things don't matter. It's just saying I am intentional about when I'm going to be focused on these other things. Um,
Right.
Even really, really like the way you explained having the conversation thing and connected that back to boundaries because I do think there's this misconception about boundaries. There's a fine line between boundaries and avoidance. And I feel like this is a great time to have this little, just say this. Sometimes what people think our boundaries are avoidance. And what you just explained is a perfect example of healthy boundaries. You're saying, I know there's a capacity that I can function within, and there's a time or threshold in which I might cross that capacity. In order for me to make sure there is a sense of balance and having boundaries for how I, commit my capacity, I need to be able to have certain conversations. So if I'm going to go over on work or if I'm going to, I'm going to time this priority to be at this time, I want to make sure that I'm having the conversations over here. You're not saying I'm going to avoid talking to them or I'm going to, just neglect this thing because it's just not it's not serving me or it's not, it's not necessary. You're dedicating something to that to be able to allow the balance to exist. And I love that. I love that you have a healthy approach to how you look at maintaining boundaries for your balance.
Thank you.
Besides having the conversations, because I'm hearing that's a really important one for you, are there other daily things that you do to have balance and just kind of juggling all of the things that you have going on?
Yes, first and foremost, I start my day with God. Like, I absolutely have to start my day with Him. Sometimes it's just a silent prayer in bed. Sometimes it's on my knees. Sometimes it's prostate. But listen, it is starting my day with Him. And then I normally have like prayer, devotion. Like, I use the Bible app. I use Calm or Balance for like meditation, mental health, and then sometimes I'm walking or I'll go to the gym at my apartments and then I do just a little bit of exercise, like just kind of open myself up. Starting my day with God is a non-negotiable. Like, don't call me between 6 and 8. Don't even, you're not gonna even get an answer. Matter of fact, my phone is on like do not disturb. Like, it's not coming off.
Right.
Honestly, my phone has been on Do Not Disturb since I became a full-time entrepreneur. When I first went full-time entrepreneurship, I was like, oh, this phone is driving me crazy. And my daughter was like, you should put it on Do Not Disturb. I was like, oh, that's how you be avoiding my calls. That's how my phone goes straight to, just get fun of
Like,
her.
hey, come on.
Yeah, like, that's how it is. But yeah, that's how I normally start the day. And then throughout the day, and I journal. I definitely have to journal in the morning. It just clears my head. Again, when you live with a mental illness, there are so many thoughts that go through your head. There's so much work that you have to do. And I know this is not the same, but I've heard somebody explain, like, when you talk to someone that's from another country and they have to translate what you're saying to their language, flip it back around to our language and spit it back out. As someone who is high functioning depression or any type of mental illness, anxiety, bipolar, any of those things, we literally have to take the thoughts in our head and we have to flip them so that we don't act or react to them. The voice that says you're not enough, I have to counter that with God says that I am wonderfully and fearfully made. The thought that says that, oh, that will fail. No, my God says that I can do all things through Christ. That's like, you literally have to take those thoughts and you have to silence them. And I like to make fun on social media about it. It's 3-4 voices in my head. Like, I don't need you to disturb neither one of us. We don't want to be bothered. None of us want to be bothered. But it's literally the process that we have to go through, and it's throughout the day. It's literally thinking about chatter in your head that does not shut up. That doesn't shut up, that you're fighting as you're in a meeting, as you're on a podcast interview, all these things that, you have to do. So it's like, when you guard yourself up at the beginning of the day with so much, like, you can set out that the day is going to be great. Now, yeah, stuff happens. And like you said, we have to learn how to stop reacting to things. And so, for me, it's like saying these affirmations through my head. I have 2 apps actually, and I use one called Motivation, and they pop up on my phone.
You got the same ones I got.
Yes, they pop up on my phone. So sometimes when work is hard, I got deadlines, and I'm like, I need it. And now they're personalized, so they say our names in some of them. So those are some things that I do as well. But also, I want people to think about self-care as something that's daily. And again, we have to redefine these commercial terms that we use. When people think self-care, the first thing comes to their head is the spa, the nails. Listen, none of that stuff is self-care for me. Y'all will hear me say this repeatedly. Yes, I go and get my feet done, but I'm not relaxed. I got to watch to make sure he's not cutting my cuticle too close. I got to make sure he's not scrubbing my feet too hard. I got to make sure the water's not too hot. Like, I'm not relaxed. I'm not relaxed till he's done. So that's not self-care. Self-care to me is sitting on my sofa with a big bowl of popcorn, a glass of red wine, and I'm watching something on Tubi. That's self-care. Or going out to eat with my girlfriends, hanging out with my girlfriends. Like, that's self-care to me. So I think when we learn to practice it daily, self-care could be, if you're a mom, going into the restroom by your doggone self without somebody following you in the restroom.
Woo! I got a toddler.
Grandmother, and I'm like, why you here? Why are you in here?
And they're gonna stand at the door till you done too.
Knocking on the door, till you finish. So I think when we start thinking, and again, I feel like as thought leaders in this space, Bianca, it's up to us in some ways to share that with people. Like, we have to start showing people spa days ain't necessarily self-care. Like, it's expensive as hell. I don't know if anybody been to a spa day. Honey, I went for my birthday and I was like, my kids was like, happy birthday. They were like, happy birthday. Like, that gets expensive, but what can you do if you don't have funds to do that?
Mm-hmm.
You have to make things of your own.
Wow. I love that you speak to everybody. Look, Keisha, this was like a downpour of so much wisdom, so much knowledge, talking about what self-care is, talking about reframing those critics and like internal just negative thoughts. I feel like that's a skill everybody should be aware of and how to, just awareness to use. And if you don't sometimes have the thoughts for yourself, I don't. Sometimes my mind moving from things to things. That's why I do the apps. That's why I have those apps. And I am is super customizable. So it's motivation to give it to you a little bit more direct sometimes because I'm like, oh, thank you. but they're huge, and they unlock stuff for you that sometimes is just sitting in there. Um, One thing I wanted to respond to that you said was how you are just actively releasing things off of you, because I think like stress finds its way to you, right? That's inevitable. So if you're thinking I'm just only living a stress-free life, like you're not human. I don't want to sound like I'm being harsh, but the human experience is that we're going to experience stress, and some of that is healthy. So I'll say that. But creating intentional opportunities to release that off of you through journaling. I know for some people, like doing some physical exercise, doing deep breathing or meditation, like all of these things allow you to create senses of calm. This is directly activating your parasympathetic nervous system because on the other end, right, stress is like sitting on us like weights. And it's causing us to have rapid heart rates. It's causing us to gain weight in just certain parts of our body. It's causing us to, sometimes have these just really negative and harsh thoughts about ourselves and others. And one of the things you mentioned is that that creates a pathway to what you're like releasing, what you're expressing to other people. And so if you're not if you're not intentional about getting that out, you may be struggling in some way. You may be creating a longer term health issue for yourself. And you just gave us some like golden nuggets on how can I get that out of myself without having a whole lot of money. I really love that you like made it really practical. You speak to everybody. You're like, everybody is not, first of all, spa day is not self-care for everybody, and that's not going to be like practical for everybody. But what is practical is when I could just have a couple hours to myself and just relax, and I could fall asleep, or I can sit here and watch TV. I can go for a walk, like whatever that is that allows you to reconnect, release, just have some time to yourself. There is nothing like it. So thank you for saying that. And you also mentioned how important it is to have people that advocate for you. And so can you share with us just like how important your support systems have been in your entrepreneurial journey? Because I know you got friends, family, you got like all of the above, just business partners. What has that been like for you?
It's an amazing thing to have a tribe. It is amazing to have people who may not understand all the time what it's like for you, but because they love you, they support you. But I think the key word in this, people don't like it, but we have to be held accountable for how we take care of ourselves. Now, I'm not speaking extreme cases because I know there are people who are their depression, their anxiety, they have PTSD, they have bipolar disorder. Like sometimes it's beyond some of the things that we have in place. And I don't do it perfectly all the time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I mess up more than I think I get it right. But I have a tribe that gets me back into place with it. We have to be accountable for our actions. You mentioned like if we don't do things, how they show up. I will tell you that if you have unhealed things, you have things that trigger you, and you have not started to work on them, honey, they're going to show up when you least expect it. If you
Mhm.
work a corporate job or you work for somebody else and that boss talks to you the way your mom used to talk to you, that triggers you, you're going to go off on her and lose your job. You got to be responsible for healing those things that could trigger you or put you in spaces where you are not going to operate as you should be, operating. And so people like they laugh when I say this, or they're like, "Oh, it's not that deep." It is absolutely that deep. It is that deep because those things will manifest in areas and in places you don't want them to show up. And again, we are still fighting the fight to get mental health recognized as something that's doable. Because I mean, I think it's cliche now. People are like, oh yeah, mental health is mainstream. No, it's cliche-ish. It's cliche-ish. It's not many people that are actually doing the work in this area, in this journey. And so when you have people who advocate for you on your behalf, I'll give an example. When I was hosting My Mind is My Business in person for the first time this year, this was year 5 that I've been doing this event. I got to meet people who have been down with me forever. And
Mhm.
this was my first time to meet them. And guess what happened? A tornado comes through Houston, knocks out the
Oh my gosh.
power, floods, trees. The venue where I was supposed to have the event was without power. My friend, Dr. Tyra Gardner, advocated for me on my behalf because, of course, when that happened, I froze. I was paralyzed. I had did all this planning. It was not going as planned for a split second. I froze. I couldn't do anything. And she went into action and said, okay, so this is what we're going to do. And it worked out perfectly. I think it worked out just how God intended for it to happen. But what about if I was just on an island by myself and I didn't have her? Dr. Michelle Van was here as well, flew in from Kansas. Tyra flew in from Philadelphia, among other people as well. But those are the two who stood out for me because when I couldn't like articulate, like literally, Bianca, I could not talk. I just stood there like, this is
What am I gonna do?
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe this. Those went into action, getting the hotel to give us a space. Girl, for like literally nothing. Making sure that my social media manager knew to get an announcement out ASAP about where we were pivoting for the night or even the next day. So when you have a tribe who, number one, you've had conversations with about what this looks like for you, what it looks like when you about to go into crises, because I literally could have went into crises at that very moment. And crises isn't she laying down crying, she spazzing out. Crises is just paralyzing. Like I could just literally be paralyzed at all, completely, you know. But having conversations of them knowing what it looks like. Also, when you need help, saying that you need help. This is what help looks like for me. These are the things that I need you to do, but also the ones that are cheering you on when you do stuff like this, that are by your side, who again may not fully buy into what it is, or may not, I won't say buy in because they have to have buy-in, but they may not fully understand it. But because they love you, they are like, I'm all in. That's important in this journey because this could be very lonely. When I'm going into crises, I isolate. It's like going into a bubble. And
Yes.
that bubble is my protection, and nobody can hurt me in that bubble, but a bubble can be popped. And that's what your tribe is there for, to not only guide you out of the bubble, but to pop that sucker when you come up out of there.
Absolutely.
That's to pop that bubble when you come out, so you can't retreat back. It's like, okay, now what's going on? Let's talk about it. So I tell people, like, get folks around you who support you. Try to release the shame and the stigma that you feel and share with someone what you are going with. And even if that's just one person, if that's just your mama, your dad, and your cousin, just get you one person who will advocate for you, but will also support you and hold you accountable for your behavior.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Shout out to them women that showed up and just were I don't like a blanket, an umbrella during that time of need. I am huge about relationships, and my core is helping adults who are navigating things that happened a long time ago in their childhood, in their past, that are showing up in different ways in their present life and maybe holding them back from what they feel like they can accomplish. So I thought that was really lovely that you explained that healing journey and the accountability behind that. You have been saying it. You said it's up to you, right? Because I do think it's a sense of there's this thing of there's people that hurt you, and then you know just like I don't know, at the mercy of the pain, and you just
Yeah.
kind of got to live with it. And it's like, but you can't heal, right? You can't do something with it. It doesn't erase your experiences. It doesn't take that away. But what are you going to do with that? And a lot of the healing journey can be a lot more powerful when you take those circumstances and put them into purpose. And so I really appreciate you saying that. In the village thing, the tribe thing is huge because first of all, God was behind you in that whole situation. And that's how you know when God's in it, because when stuff happens, it's already fixed. It's already gonna be it's handled. Like you don't know what's coming up. That's why I think relationships are so important in general, because when you're a high functioning person, when you are ambitious, when you know I done dotted all the I's, I crossed all of the T's, I did all of that. Like you know what you capable of, what you did, but you don't know the blind spots. You don't know the things that's behind that door that's coming up, right? And so having just being a good person, being the person that people don't mind lending themselves to or extending themselves for or showing up to be of assistance in some way, like because that's what you do, right? Like that's how you showing up for people. That's what you naturally do effortlessly, right? Like not even without a thought. I just feel like when you create version of yourself that is positive, that is, like I don't have any intentions on bad and I don't know like how this is gonna work out, but I'm just gonna be a good person just because I'm a good person, then things magnetically come back to you when you need them. And you don't know when you're gonna need them. That's the thing. That's why I always tell people I'm like, and that's why I'm big on relationships. I'm like, you don't have to, you don't have to understand how this person is gonna show up in your life. Just know that if you are a good person and you maintain some sense of this relationship in a positive way, it's gonna take care of itself for you at some point. So that's all you gotta do. You don't gotta know how, you don't know when, why. Just do the right thing. That's it.
So true. Yes.
I thought that was huge. So thank you so much for sharing that and how important it is to have support in your life in general, but also in an entrepreneurial journey where like you have so many big things happening. Just like the big wonderful things are happening, the big bad things can come and surprise you and just kind of put you at a standstill, like, oh my gosh. So that was huge. And these women, it don't even sound like they were from Texas. They just knew like, okay, let me game plan and figure out what we can do because we're not going to let this event not move forward because of this. So that was amazing. Speaking, I know you also touched on just the stigma of mental health. For you think about that stigma, you think about the misconceptions about mental health and the entrepreneurial journey. What challenges have you run into and how did you address them?
Honestly, I think I don't feel like I have, not that I've knowingly known, of someone saying, I don't want to work with you because you have a mental illness, or your work is going to be less than stellar because you have a mental illness. I think we do that a lot more than other people may do, that I have seen it done to other people. And again, you brought up like when you have functioning, it look like what it may look like for someone else. So I have seen other people, make fun or say things about people who, that, you can visibly see that something is wrong with them. And they make comments and then it's like, okay, so what do you do in that moment? And it's like for me, I'm going to say something. I'm going to stand up for that person, whether I know that person or not. I'm like, well, do I look like something's wrong with me? Well, there is. I have high functioning depression. It's like having these conversations that I think that's key is having conversations around it. We need to normalize. That's the word. Lord, we be throwing that word around so much. But we need to normalize having conversations around what mental health looks like. Some of the things that, people have to deal with. And I think from sometimes imposter syndrome sets in because I have this illness. So I'm going to presume that somebody else is going to feel that way when on the outset, I don't even look like it. I don't
Yeah,
even look like
right.
anything's happening. I don't even look like something's wrong or any of that. But it is a challenge. It's very much a challenge when, especially in the spaces where you're actually doing the work, that is triggering. So, like for my event, literally, people could have been like, "Oh, I'm not coming," or "Oh my gosh, like it's other people talking to me instead of she talking to, like she's not talking to us," or whatever the case may be. Like it could have been those things, but in that time frame, I couldn't talk. I literally could not do anything, and I had friends that were like, "Go to your room, go figure yourself." So because
Yeah,
you have an event to put on, and these were OGs, and I call anyone who has been with me for more than one event, you're an OG to me. I don't care.
yeah, yeah.
You're an OG. Tyra has been down since year one, so has Dr. Van, without ever meeting each other in person visibly until May of this year. But
Wow.
it's really like having a voice to say, this is wrong. This is not right. You don't know this person's experience, and we don't know what unhealed parts of us could be triggered one day for these symptoms to show up. So we
Yeah,
just got to be mindful.
absolutely. I think that's super key. You mentioned like what you just said about we don't know what unhealed parts of us will show up. I always talk about like life as being a iterative journey. Like we should always be growing or setting new goals for ourselves. Like we shouldn't look at healing as a finish line or reaching certain goals. It's like that's it. We have accomplished everything in life
Right.
because we're always going to see something else in ourselves or learn something else in ourselves that is an opportunity for growth. And so I thought that was huge that you said that. You mentioned that earlier. You said, I probably make more mistakes than I realize or, than I get it right. And that's a part of the learning experience. And I always mention this. I mentioned this in other podcasts, but when I read Will Smith's book finally at the end of last year, and he talked about that, he said, he learned that the way he said it was like he learned that school and life are similar. Somebody told him this, and they said the only difference is in school you get the lessons first and then you get the test. In life, you get the test first, and it's up to you to learn the lesson, right? You don't have to. You can just, keep getting the same test and failing them or whatever. But a lot of how life is designed is that you live and then you learn. And so making the mistakes is part of that. And I always say, like, don't be ashamed or feel bad because you make the mistakes because you gotta make the mistakes so you can learn from it. But as you grow, you'll make different kind of mistakes. You don't want to kind of repeat the same things over and over again. You're going to get faced with surprises that you didn't even know. You might get a whiff of a smell you ain't smelled in 20, 30 years and just be like, oh my goodness, that done set me down. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Right. But just being aware of, like, I'm always growing as a person will allow you to have the capacity to know that I don't have all the answers, first of all, and that there is an opportunity for me to learn more about myself. With that being said, what have been some of the most valuable lessons that you've learned about yourself and your business?
This is probably gonna sound very cocky and arrogant, but I'm a freaking boss. I know my stuff. I am very good at what I do. I show up unapologetically every single time. I am not going to half-ass. I'm going to give you 100% Lakeisha Mosley at all times. I'm going to do that when I'm scared, when I'm triggered, when I may feel like, my gosh, like, why me? Why would they choose me? I am going to show up in this space. And I've had to learn how to say that about myself that, girl, you know what the hell you doing. You good at what you do. It's okay to say that you're good at what you do despite the fact of having a mental illness. I will tell you that I am super open. I answer my own DMs, my own emails. Like, I don't have anybody doing that because this work is personal. So even if I ever got an assistant or whatever, like there would be very limited things that they would do because for the cause, I gotta show up. I gotta show up. I gotta be that person. I've learned that I am, although hard pressed, I'm resilient. There's always something that is happening. Literally. I said this to a really good friend who is a client. And I said, I always feel like I'm in something. I always feel like there's something going on. And again, that's that accountability because I was leaning toward crises and I was leaning toward feeling sorry for myself. And she said, well, you can either classify it as a shift or a shit. Which one is it? A shift? I like those because I can navigate that and I get to control. Again, accountability, responsibility. I get to control how that ends. The shit, not so much. I just have to get up, wipe, and keep. And it was like eye opening.
Yeah.
for her to say that to me, first of all, again, very strong personality. I feel like people sometimes don't tell me the truth because my personality is so strong. But I welcome that. Feedback is a gift for me, good or bad. I thrive. I thrive. I don't send surveys just to send surveys. I send them because I want these events to be dope as hell. I want them to be the ones that you want to come to. But I needed her to say that to me because I was going into a dark place. That was just this week. That was just this
Mm,
week. I was going into a dark place, and she helped me in that quick moment reshape how I was going to respond to the current shift in my life. Because that clearly was a shift at that moment. Think when you really know yourself, Bianca, when you really know, only then can you show up as true, authentic, transparent, battered, bruised, healed, unhealed, traumatized, triggered, loving, kind, all those things. Literally, that's knowing you. I can still go off on my kids and cuss them out, but I can still envelop them in a hug and say, Mama loves you. I'm
yeah.
human. But that doesn't mean that I'm void of accountability and responsibility because I'm human. Yes, I can make a mistake or I can say things out of turn to my children. I need to be mindful of that, but I also have to apologize for that. So I think I just it's a part of knowing yourself and knowing like how I show up in business and how I show up in these other areas. Like I'm good.
Yeah.
I do it 1,000%. I show up as me and I do the best job that I can. And I don't apologize for any of it at all. I don't apologize for being, I will say I am the best at what I do in my arena. Nobody can top what I'm doing. Nobody.
I absolutely support that. I feel like you're hitting on a couple of social messages and that's huge. Like just being able to comfortably say, right, that, I know what I'm doing, I do it well, I'm confident in this space. Because I think sometimes, especially when it comes to women, you're silenced in that way, or you're told you're doing too much, or you shouldn't be bragging, or you're doing, you're being arrogant. And it's like, so I can't compliment myself without being categorized as arrogant. I can't, you know what I mean? Like who has created that rule that I can't, especially if like I've been doing this, I have the track record, you've been connected to this space for so long. Like I feel like, sometimes we are our own biggest cheerleaders, and that's how we get to the next level. Any successful person will tell you that at some point they have to gravitate towards the spaces that nurture their skills, their talents, their ambitions, because you can't just wait for somebody to see you and say, "You're so talented over there sitting by yourself in that corner that I want to let you know that." Like you got to already see that in yourself. And usually um God gives you that, right? And so it's almost just like trusting that whatever kind of God's planning in you, that's real. Even if you don't believe it yourself, I'm gonna trust it because God gave it to me. But also finding the spaces that welcome that and not being afraid of that. Because if we silence ourselves, then the world is gonna silence us. And that's kind of the message they're already giving. I also love that you said it's okay to apologize. I think, sometimes when you get into certain spaces to where you know that there's a hierarchy in power, you feel like, well, because I'm in charge and there's no consequence behind my actions, right? Like parent child dynamics, for example, they may feel like there's no consequence behind their action and I could just talk to you any old kind of way and later realize that I probably was going too hard and then don't say anything, just like, oh, well, time will pass, they'll get over it. Like, it's okay to acknowledge that, maybe I did go a little bit hard, I shouldn't have did that. And I am still working on this and I don't want this to continue to be a pattern. And, acknowledging that for that person because they deserve that. And even though they're younger and they can't punish you or whatever, right? That doesn't mean that they deserve to be mistreated or talked down to. And what are you setting them up for with other relationships, other interactions with authority? Because a lot of us grow up with this unique relationship with authority because of how we were talked to or treated by authority figures when we were younger. So I thought that was It was super powerful what you said. You said something else, but it's like it's on the tip of my brain and I can't find it right now. So I might find myself back to it. You say so many really, really good things. So I'm just enjoying this conversation and just so much knowledge that you have to share. One of the things you did mention was just how uniquely challenging it could be for entrepreneurs with mental illness or even women entrepreneurs, Black women entrepreneurs to get support in certain spaces. What advice would you give to other entrepreneurs, Black women entrepreneurs that live with mental health challenges?
I would say, first and foremost, you have to recognize that that's what it is. You have to call it. I mean, I literally had to say to myself, like, okay, you have high functioning depression. You have high functioning depression. You have like, you have to own it in a way, like it's already in you. So embodying it is not really the right word, but you really have to own it. But I would say seek help with people who look like you. And if not, shoot, go create it yourself. I didn't see it. I didn't see it. And I am one of those people that I'll reach across the aisle. I'm not afraid to, or I don't feel like that diminishes my Blackness because I have an ally that's white or that's Asian or that's Hispanic. I'm not that girl. You won't even really catch me having those type of conversations, nor do I debate those with other people. However, I know as a Black woman that I can only speak from experiences as a Black woman who lives with a mental illness. So, although mind your business, the premise is for Black women entrepreneurs, I would welcome anyone who wanted to be a part of this safe space because we all, need someone to lean on. But I would say, like, really seek out the help. I think sometimes for us, we get lazy. We don't want to put in the work to find people like us. If finding a Black woman therapist is your goal, get your behind out there and look for her. She ain't gonna pop up. She ain't gonna knock at your door and be like, "Hey, I heard you got anxiety. You need help." Like, she not gonna show up like that. You need to literally find her. You need to interview her. Like, whatever therapist you want. I wanted a Black male therapist who was Christian. Again, I got a strong personality. I need somebody who
Oh,
gon' yeah. And literally, I love him to pieces. I literally fire him almost every session because he just really be on me about and he helped me learn that
my gosh.
accountability piece that when I thought going to therapy was somebody that was just going to give me all the answers and that was going to tell me all these great things. No, he literally is questioning me about things that are already inside of me. I just need to bring them out. I just need to act on those things. And when I don't, he like, okay, well, you know what you needed to do. Those things. So I say seek it. Get with other people who look like you, if that's what you want to do. I get with people who look that are female. They ain't all Black. You know what I'm saying? So you
Yeah.
find these spaces that are available. And if something is not indicative of you, create your own. Even if it's just you and one other person, or even if it's just you yourself. Like, create something because someone will gravitate. Someone needs what you are putting out there. So I feel like even if it's not exactly what you want, create it.
Yep.
Go ahead and create your own.
I'm looking back there because I have this sign. You can't probably see it really well because it's kind of like it's gold, but it has like cut out. But it basically says create things you wish existed. And I just love that because I think sometimes, we can get caught up in this space of just, griping about what we feel like should exist, what is not enough, all of these things that we want. And at some point, you can be a part of the solution because you see the need is there. So being a part of the solution, there was just so much that I feel like you said that was really, really magical and beautifully said. You said, like I am a Black woman, so there are just certain experiences that I have and can speak on, but that doesn't shut my door to being able to connect with, to support, to be supported by other people, right? A lot of this is the human experience, not just like just my experience or me as a Black woman experience. And sometimes there are other opportunities out there that you can't see when you close yourself off too much. And so I love that. And I'm big on gravitate towards the things that are making space for your talents, for your goals, for your ambitions, because it's usually out there. You just have to remove the limits that, are blocking your ability to see them or to receive them. So I thought that was really, really sweet that you said that. I wish I would just be over here. I'm thinking, I wish I was over here writing things down because when you say stuff, I'm like thinking of something and then I'll lose it by the time I respond. But it's, I mean, what you're saying is so important. I know what I was going to say. For what a lot of people don't know is a lot of people that are successful, especially highly successful, are living with mental illness in some
Yes.
way. It's not like this taboo thing. Like people are living with it. I love that you said own it, because one of the things that's important in the healing journey is wholeness, a sense of wholeness, a sense of feeling like I am a complete self. And when you deny parts of yourself because you don't like them, you know what I mean, or you don't feel like that's what you want, you're essentially putting like slices in your pie, and it's impossible for you to operate in your wholeness if you're saying, I'm gonna take this little piece out because I don't want that piece. And I'm gonna take this little piece out. Like all your flaws are part of your wholeness. So embrace them enough to be able to say, this is who I am. I am, able to own that, and be able to hug on that, and I love that, and work on that, make it what I need it to be for me, right? That's part of your uniqueness. And understand that it doesn't stop you from reaching your goals. It doesn't stop you from being successful. Like I said, like a lot of y'all will be surprised how many people are out here living with bipolar disorder and running, businesses or operating in the entertainment industry, or professional athletes, or, mathematicians, like all of these great talents, or just very different disorders that you think that would handicap somebody and they can't function with. Like people are out here thriving. And so the mental health disorder itself is not what stops people. It's the idea behind, what you feel like you can do and connect with that a lot of times is stopping us. So, just do your own research for yourself. There's a lot of people out here that's navigating life and handling it, and they, you'd be surprised. What do you envision for the future of entrepreneurs living with mental health challenges, and what changes would you like to see in the entrepreneurial ecosystem to support them?
Feel like there should be more groups and spaces like what I'm trying to build out for entrepreneurs. I think we are a unique set of people, for one. And I always joke, like, it's got to be something wrong with you to decide that you want to do your own business anyway. As stressful as that mess is, like, it's something wrong with us to begin with. It's wrong. It's something wrong
The
with us
work
to
that go
begin with.
into it is
Yes.
unimaginable. You just don't know what's behind it. You be thinking and then you like get in there, you like, wait a minute, 17 more steps to this. Then
Yes. Yes. And some parts of society is a pay to play. And sometimes people just see a need, they want to solve a problem, but they can't afford all of these courses and things, just craziness that people charge. And I do feel like you should be paid your worth. I do feel like you should be paid for what you teach people, but I also feel like, there should be different price points for those things. So I would love to see like more spaces like Mind Your Business, where entrepreneurs can go and get help. I would love to even just see like a nonprofit. I know that's not my wheelhouse, but like a nonprofit space that fully supports nonprofits. I would love to see the government get more involved with that, to where, it's already hard for them to fund programs. So I get that part. But to also like just a little bit of the budget be toward women entrepreneurs in business, who live with a mental challenge. Like just some spaces just for that, more classes that are available, some trainings and some certifications that come out of that. Because I think we're a sector of people who we get lost in the shuffle. But then when something happens, entrepreneur so and so, died by suicide, and then everybody's like, oh my gosh, well, we didn't see it. Yeah, I know, because nobody's showing you what to look for. No one's telling you what to look for. When we look at some of the celebrities who have died by suicide, they were happy. They were entertainers. Literally, they were entertainers. But
Literally,
it was dark thoughts that
all the time.
caused them to feel like there was no other way out. So I really would love to see an embracing of entrepreneurs with who live with a mental illness, just to show that how normal
Yeah.
that is. Because I mean, some of the stuff we have to come up with, yeah, you gotta be cuckoo to be able to do it. Like I literally think of like some of the greatest things that have occurred is from someone's mind. And then when you go and you do research, the research shows they struggled with this or they struggled with that. And you're like, oh, wow. But we don't celebrate or talk about the fact that there are people who live with mental challenges that are breaking records every day, kicking down doors, breaking glass ceilings. Like they're literally changing the game in their industry, not necessarily in the mental health industry, but in their own industries. So I would love to see more of that.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. Like now more celebrities kind of coming to the forefront and talking about their mental illness and just, how they navigate life. Because I think to your point, there's this idea that when people get to such a low place that they don't see any other way out and it's just over. But there's a lot of people that get to that low place and they can tell you, kind of what's happening. How did they get to that low place? And also, what did they do to get out of that low place that might be helpful for other people who are not aware that they are navigating that, right? Like one of the stories that I remember hearing and that I really appreciate that this person likes to share their story and goes all over the world and does it is Kevin Hines. I don't know if you heard of him, but he's the person who jumped off the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco, but the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and survived. And he tells you about, that morning and how he was on the bus and he was crying. He was just walking around, San Francisco, and he just really wanted somebody to say something to him. And he said, if anybody would have said anything, I would have stopped. But and I live in San Francisco now, so I know the culture of people are kind of in their own world. They don't, super engaged with everybody. And so I'm like, there's parts of the country. I'm like, yeah, somebody probably would have stopped if they saw you crying and said something. But anyway, but that's sidebar. But like how he talks about, his surviving that and now managing that and, kind of being through that. I think like people hearing those stories of the survivors, not saying you have to have an actual attempt, but just knowing that like these things are coming up, right? Like real people are living with these things. Real people have experienced being really close to, just kind of giving up or have given up in ways and survived it and how you maybe could have a different path in that. And or how, when you get to those places where it's just everything is just kind of overwhelming and weighing down on you that you're not alone. I think, the idea that you're not alone is so much more empowering than people realize. Like when you know that I'm not the only one feeling this, I am not the only one going through this. There are other people that have been here. It's almost like a roadmap to knowing that I can get out of here. Because a lot of times people feel trapped in those moments. Like
Yeah.
it's a dark and lonely place. So you know what I mean when you get there. So I just really appreciate that you came on here today. You did share so much about your journey. You also shared so many really helpful tips. So many, I would say, bucket loads of wisdom for people. You made it really plain, just to understand just so many layers of the responsibility behind understanding and navigating and managing your mental health, but also being able to continue to reach your goals, being able to create plans to navigate when difficult times that come up normally can come up and still keep going. Knowing when you should pause, knowing who can be there of assistance and support you and advocate for you, hold you accountable, all of the above. I mean, so much. I could go on, but I just want to pause and just really thank you for that. And also ask you, let people know how can they get in touch with you or can they find you at 'cause you're doing so much wonderful work.
Well, I'm on all social media platforms as Lakeisha M. Mosley. Now, my playground is Instagram. I am always on Instagram, not on TikTok as much. Facebook, I absolutely hate, but I just have it because I have to have it. And I'm trying to navigate LinkedIn, but Instagram is where you can find me. I respond to my own DMs, my own emails. If you send me an email, am the one that's going to respond to that email, and just tap in because I have so many things coming up for the course of this year, and some things we're releasing over the next couple of weeks about things that we're doing for next year. So I definitely want people to be able to tap in. I'm always looking for speakers, but also just building this community of people where you can come and feel safe and feel nurtured and know that you found your tribe.
You found your tribe. And you do that really well, by the way. I just want you to know that you do that extremely well. And I know you do, but I just want to say it because I'm like, the way I met you was through you just doing it. And I was like, wait a minute, this exists, so thank you for giving your gift to the world and sharing it, publicly and inviting people into that space. For those listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Do not forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Share this with people. There are so many people that could benefit from this information. I will also be very interested in your feedback because just like, we're navigating journeys that exist that I'm not necessarily connected directly to you. Maybe it's not you or your path looks a little different, but share just something that, stuck with you that, maybe stands out to you, something that you took away because we're always here to learn and grow and add more to this podcast, and we would appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much, and tune in to other podcasts, other episodes, and we'll see you next time.